Well, welcome. Today we're going to talk about an aspect of the school that we keep debating, we keep trying to figure out how we're going to move forward in the new generation with new tools. And here are some of the people tonight to talk about the e-learning programs, obviously the maestro who's driving it, and three people who are using it. So why don't we start with introductions?
Well, thanks for having us tonight. This is my third time on the show, and I'm excited to come back every time. I've been here almost a year, and it's been a great time, and I look forward to more things even further down the road. So my name is Matthew Joseph. I am the Director of Digital Learning, Innovation, and Technology here in the Milford Public Schools.
My name is Christina Cody. I'm a grade 2 ELL teacher at Memorial Elementary School.
My name is Dan Cody. I'm a 6th grade geography teacher, and I'm also the curriculum team leader for social studies in the middle grades.
Teresa Moore. I'm at Stacy, and I'm a 6th grade math teacher.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Now been married a whole
month.
Oh. You know, since I've been married almost 100 years, no matter what, most of everybody's a set of newlyweds. The good news is, I was told, it's only the first 100 years that are tough. So I'm on the downward leg. Now it's supposed to just get easier. Talk to me about what the program is all about.
I think the program is, when we talk about program, I think it's really a mindset and shift in teaching and learning. And I think where we are right now in education and the paradigm shift from really gathering information and then regurgitating information is now discovery learning. And I think a lot of what I hope we talk about tonight is what that discovery learning looks like, what it looks like in the hands of our educators, and the tools to get us there as a district. And often when we talk about programmatic initiatives or tools, we talk about things. We hear Chromebooks, we've heard that a lot. We've heard Google a lot. But what those are tools. And for any carpenter or artist, that you know that it takes multiple tools to get you to where you need to be. And our digital learning program or vision is really putting in real-time technology for our skilled professionals in their kind of planning to get the most impact out of our students. And a big piece of what we're doing is creating excitement and not just teaching specific facts and regurgitating again those facts. It's creating avenues and discovery learning, and our teachers are facilitators of that learning and finding many, many ways to access that knowledge and then present it in ways that make sense to the students, because at the end of the day, our goal is to ensure they retain that information. And teaching them that way in the current mold that they're really used to accessing that information is critical for Milford to ensure that that's a match.
Well, I think the most important thing is, when we were in school, it was all memorization.
Yes.
You know, you think about history. When did Paul Revere first come to Milford? You know, he came on this night and, okay, check. But you never asked the fundamental questions of why. You know, I mean, is Milford the center of the universe? Of course. 28,000 of us know it. 6 billion need to be educated. But the fundamental question you really want to ask is, why do we believe in a fact? Yeah, is it a fact? You know, so many things we take for granted. You know, I'd rather hear you asking, why did that happen? And have the child think about it.
And even the how, and then teach it to others. And I remember I was in actually Mr. Cody's class one time when you're doing geomaps. It was something like that. It was just fascinating to see these students buying into that learning style and that process of discovery. I don't even know exact content. Maybe you could kind of give a brief overview on that.
We actually, it was an online mapping tool. It was an interactive atlas. And I forget, I asked very basic questions. It was completely inquisitive. And kids had to figure out why do people live in a certain area. But what was really cool about the interactive map was you could layer multiple maps on top of it to really inspect, like, okay, these are all the clues. Let me figure out why this is the way it is. It was really fun. And the fact that they were blown away that they were used to looking at a paper atlas, but then when they actually got to use the interactive one and layer things, like, oh, I could just manipulate this to exactly what I need to find the information I need to find, they loved it. They actually they've been hooked on it. They were using it today too, so they've mastered how to use that map maker tool by now. It's fantastic.
Could you even keep up in today's day and age with paper atlases?
Well, as soon as you put it in print, it's basically obsolete. And that's what's so fantastic about the online tools is that not only are we finding new resources, but they're constantly updating. So every paper-based resource, you give them that little preamble, like, no, this is, this was 2012. There's been a new country since then, even, like so. So it's constantly telling them, like, oh yeah, this isn't quite the way it is. But that's the joy of having online resources, is that they're constantly updating them and refreshing, and we're discovering new things all the time.
Well, I mean, even different places.
Yeah.
When I grew up in Milford High and Paul Revere was there by my side,
Yeah.
You think about it and you say, if I ever imagined I'd be having dinner at the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates,
Yeah.
That my darling bride said, I want to see the gates of Babylon. Let's go up and see them. Never. You'd see a picture, or I remember, you'd look and when my daughter said, Dad, what was the Soviet Union? I'm like, oh,
Right.
how old am I? But a lot of the stands,
Yeah.
I can't remember all the stands.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot.
And they just sort of popped up one day.
Yeah.
And, pretty amazing
Yeah.
that you can now start putting things together.
And actually, we just got back from April break, and over April break, Google Earth just rolled out a brand new update. And now they used to have tours and treks of different sites, like you could go to Paris right now, you could go to the Galapagos, but they've made it even more interactive and added even more content. So the atlas just grew even bigger. It was crazy.
Well, but the thing that fascinates me is Genghis and all his little Khans.
Yeah.
The whole Khan family there when the Mongols migrated.
Yep.
In a static book,
Yeah.
it's got to be a lot harder to study what was the reason.
Yeah.
What did they face? We would have never been able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you take advantage of that when you're designing? Now, you're supposed to be driving it through the whole middle school there, or?
I have my geography classroom, and then I also meet with the other curriculum team leaders, both through other subjects and then vertically too. There's a high school and a elementary CTL, and we just talk about our content, if there's anything we can improve on. But the technology has been a huge help, and especially because history, especially geography, sometimes is seen as pretty dry and inaccessible. But it's another tool that really helps us hook the kids too, and get them more engaged. And it's honestly, the more and more I discover, it's just making it easier and easier to get them engaged. I have my course is different than just a regular history course, but I've seen other social studies teachers, because of the position I'm in, I've been able to go into their classrooms and think like, oh, I would have never thought about it, doing it this way. So teachers are taking the technology, they're taking their subject matter, and they're making it very engaging, and they're taking it into some projects, into some lessons that I would have never thought of. But it's been fantastic to collaborate with them too.
And I think that sometimes is looked at kind of socially as, oh, if you have students with a personal device, the collaboration is going to decrease, or the teachers are going to become in a silo. But in a sense, what I've seen this year in a very short time, teachers are talking, students are working in groups, and it's become more personalized within that collaboration. And I know when we were in Ms. Moore's class and utilizing the tools for both individual assessment and gathering information about students, she was also able to personalize that learning from that data she was able to get from math classes. And it was really fascinating to see in real time. We had some school committee members with us as well, and we walked in and it was the superintendent, it was myself, it was the chair of the school committee, and the students were like, oh, okay, and then right back to what they were doing. And it was great, and you were gathering information in real time, and I thought that was
so individualized. We usually start off whole class lesson, this is our objective, these are new vocabulary words, things you're working together. But then after some lesson, and we've got a great workbook that that has some wonderful examples, different strategies. So we share that all together for about 15 minutes. And then we're often able to then go to whatever very directed activity online that I might have set up, or they may be moving on to their own individualized account, because I have 2 students that it must be 2 months ago finished the 6th grade level online program, and then moved on to the 7th grade program. So they're moving on their own pace. And one thing that helps me so much, there's just so many wonderful things about this, and it is discovery education, but when I have the kids reinforcing their learning after the lesson, they're online, I'm able to go around and I can see all the students that are getting it, they're right on target, they're the scrap paper and they're working it out and they're inputting their answers. I'm watching that, and then I can see the kids that are struggling. So I'm able to spend time, really one-on-one time with the kids that need it the most. And sometimes if I'm at my desk, someone who's gone above and beyond, they're 2 chapters ahead, they'll just pick up their Chromebook, come over to me and say, Mrs. Bowen, Mrs. Moore, I'm having trouble with that. I'm having trouble with
You're
that.
busted.
I did pretty well, right?
The kids are better than I am, but they'll say, I'm having trouble with this one. I say, well, we didn't go over this yet, but this, and I'll work, oh, I get it now, and they just go on. Because the kids and they're just driving themselves. It is discovery education for the kids. Whatever their level is, and they're becoming problem solvers, deeper problem solvers. We always say, oh, we're going to do some problem solving, questions here, we work together. But when they're taking it on individually, and the online programs often give them steps of having trouble, they're working to facilitate their own learning. It's very exciting.
I think, too, what you bring up is a paradigm that old people apply. That if I'm on a device, I'm solo. Yet when you look at the kids in school, maybe hopefully not in class, but my daughter was never by herself when she had that dang phone in her hand. Somehow she was communicating with multiple kids simultaneously. So I think it is different because these kids have grown up
Absolutely.
with devices.
And I think that the piece for me that's really exciting, because I know when we started off when you said talk about the program, and I think sometimes that's limiting to think of one specific way because it's evolving. We've heard Dan talk about how it evolves just over break, and we're looking at how we're gathering real-time data information. And I know the last time I was at the Finance Committee, we talked about what are the classrooms looking like and our vision for Milford schools, and we are looking for those personal devices in our 3rd grade and above, but we also have what we looked at for the classrooms for our pre-K to 2 to have interactive projectors and interactive boards that the students can use. And I saw a lesson actually, Christina videoed, students with limited English ability were able to do phonics. They were doing spelling in the classroom lesson that I saw. Would you mind if you just talk a little about what that lesson was about? It was really exciting to see because it had the personalization, it had the discovery, and these are students who are really, what I found fascinating is the level of confidence that these students who had some troubles with the language got right up in front of the class, had the board, and it was awesome.
Christina, start off, what is ELL? What's the goal?
So ELL is a term, it stands for English Language Learners, and it means that students who classify as ELLs are learning English as a second language. They may have a native language or 2 that isn't English. So they come and I teach them English as a primary source of instruction. So my model is solely taught in English, and these students are learning English as they come with a variety of English proficiencies.
Why do we have an ELL program?
We have a high number of ELL students and a high number of people in our community who speak English as a second language.
But we always did. I mean, I left my home and said, boy, these kids are stupid. They don't know how to speak. What are they talking? I didn't know what English was. I mean, they must be dumb kids. They don't know how to speak Portuguese.
Right.
And I was just, like a lot of us, just thrown out into the community, and all of a sudden you had to learn it. So why now do we have a special program?
We want to make sure that we're making our education as accessible for all learners as much as possible. And in order to do that, we incorporate certain learning techniques. And if we identify students with limited English proficiency, we can be sure that we as teachers are delivering them delivering them the strongest instruction possible.
But is it safe to say that the goal really is to accelerate the assimilation process?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think that's what people don't understand. We don't set up ELL to keep kids
Separate.
away from the mainstream. You know, when my cousin came from Portugal, he was 5 years above grade level, but he couldn't speak English. Within 2 years, he was proficient in English and at his normal grade level. But that was painful. In my understanding, the whole ELL concept is not to have a separate silo, but to accelerate how quickly the kids go mainstream. Is that safe?
Absolutely, absolutely. We want to integrate and incorporate our kids into all styles and all classrooms. And
So how many kids do we have in the ELL program? Do you have any idea?
I think it's fluctuating. I think to get an accurate number, you'd have to talk to our director.
10, 100?
Oh, it's over 250, I would say.
That's pretty significant. We have
Yes.
4,000 kids. So 250 are served by the ELL program.
If not more.
and the numbers grow every year.
Correct.
And then they watch the kids when they'll go from the ELL, that they call FLEPS. They've been exited the ELL program with certain supports. So in my class, I have kids that were formerly the English language learners. And so you would have conversations with them, and unless you really know that they were, formerly in the ELL program, you don't realize they still need supports. Vocabulary is a real an issue. A lot of the language that they don't know. So
For some of us,
you have
grammar still is.
but just the language. The languages need to support them further so that they're really getting the mathematical concepts, but they're missing some connections. So we have a great ELL program that then supports me as well, helps me support these children. And I'm taking a course now, what I'm learning about good strategies for vocabulary for the ELL students is great for all my students. So it's just enriching, I think,
it's
my
becoming
class.
our students, and like we said, it's teaching. And I think with the tools that we've been talking about, it makes some of the instruction that I saw that day, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about it, able to really build that engagement, because we were talking about engagement in both the 6th grade classes, and we're seeing it in our 2nd grade, our ELL population, kindergarten, throughout the district, and it's really becoming a tool to create that discovery learning at all levels, engagement and personalization.
So what the smart board allows us to do is it's an interactive board, and the projector can put anything I hook up onto my computer onto the board. And so I'm able to pull up letters, and it's almost like using large letter tiles. And the students can drag and move and manipulate words as necessary. And so as we're learning letter patterns and spelling patterns, it's important that students have hands-on experience. And I don't have 23 sets of magnets for my kids. So to have them on the board, the kids can come up and manipulate. Now some students are really confident and they can raise their hand and they can tell me what they're trying to say, but some are a little more shy and they need other ways to participate. And so these students were really comfortable and really excited to use the interactive board. And they'll come on up and they can move and they can spell things and we can save it. And that's what I really love about this too, is I can save whatever we're doing, whereas with the whiteboard I have to erase it and then rewrite the next day. I can save it and then the next day I can pull it right up and I can say, remember when we were doing this pattern? Now let's try and apply this rule. And we can keep going on and using it and building upon the knowledge that we've learned each day.
Now, my daughter, who's up at the high school, put it in perspective to me when she said, Dad, these tools help me as an educator. She said, my job as an educator is to bring every child to their level, their best level. Now, in special needs, they don't all have the same level of proficiency. She says, a lot of these tools give me the flexibility.
Yes.
Because, we were always hearing how teachers now have to teach to the lowest common denominator. And what I'm hearing is that's no longer the case.
No.
No, I don't think so at all.
It's amazing what this has made my life so easy. I started out special ed teacher, then I got my master's in gifted and talented, and so I've always felt every child should be taught at their level. But you only have 2 hands, and the tools this offers me is that there's so much individualization So I don't feel that we're teaching to the lowest common denominator in any. I don't feel like that at all in Milford. You know, I think that we're getting the support from the administration.
Now, when you say gifted and talented, okay,
It's gifted and talented, so everyone learns differently, and there's some kids that are very academically successful.
so like
And-
the top,
Right, who can
academics.
be incredibly bored and just tune out and coast and not do well in high school just because they're bored. You know, you have to keep them engaged. You have to find ways to keep all students engaged. So differentiation for me has always been, whether I'm working with, you know, learning disabled kids or high-level kids, it's what do they need?
well, see, that was always one of the things I asked. I said, your top kids are special needs. The kids who are below the mean are special needs. You know, by law, we have to take care of a certain population. But whenever we looked at the budget, you know, to every superintendent, I've said, okay, what are you doing for my next Nobel laureate?
Yeah.
We have, you know, I got 4,200 kids in this system.
You don't want to forget any part of
Right.
the population. Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, the worst thing I could ever imagine is a drive to mediocrity.
Well, these tools gives us the opportunity. I'm able to, for students, I pre-test the kids that in the beginning of the year they're identified. I'm able to pre-test kids and see if they've pre-tested out of a unit. Then I'm able to use the internet to get them on some independent work because I can't spend as much time with them. I'm a 6th grade math teacher, so I teach most of them, and then I can find some time to work with them. But they are independent kids, so they're working at their own pace. As I said, some kids just have gone past the 6th grade level. So without the support of the Chromebooks and the internet, it's harder. It's really hard.
Well, I remember our senior year, there were 3 of us that had to be banished from the high school. We wanted to do chemistry, we wanted to do math, or biology, science. We had gone through every course, and it was like, okay, what do we do now? And luckily, one of the nicest people, caring Uncle Paul Raftery, he took us and said, okay, you're out of here. And we were like, what? He goes, I signed you up at Dean Jr. You're over there to take chemistry and biology. And that was the only way he could give us the next level.
But he did that.
But he did it.
Right.
You know, it was a shame because we had to drive all the way to Dean Junior College. I mean, we thought it was great. It was an eye-opener, though, when you found out that they don't just hand out A's. You actually had to study now when you were amongst, you know, a different group of kids. But my understanding is now with the tools, the virtual classroom, that you can put kids in at any level you need.
So I think part of the personalization piece that's exciting as well is it's the extensions. It's not just the supports, it's the extensions. It's how can we go beyond? How can we take the learning that we have in whatever level, in whatever classroom, and apply it? And that was one of the first things I said today was that it's not just about getting the information, it's how we're retaining it and then presenting it. And beyond that, it's sharing it. So one of the things that you were talking about is the lessons that you were planning or the things that you were developing. Because we're in a Google environment now, we're sharing resources as educators more than ever. It's not photocopying it, putting it in an interoffice mail, and in 2 days the other grade teacher receives and like, oh, this was a great idea. It's hit share, and now as a CTL or as a part of a team, you've created something you can share digitally, and other people can then now, other educators, other principals can look at it and put their own spin on it to personalize it for their class. So it's not only that the students are able to collaborate with some of the tools that we have, it's that the educators are also collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember Lexi has something up where, some board where she puts her lesson plans up, and teachers around the country are buying them.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm amazed. She gets
Yeah.
$100 this month, 200 there.
Teachers pay teachers.
Yep.
Teachers
Yeah.
teachers buying her lesson plans.
Yes.
Sure.
I thought, how cool is
It's
that?
a wonderful resource.
Yeah. And we're doing it internally for free with
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
selling
Yeah.
it to each other.
Yeah, I think, I mean, at Memorial in Brookside, I have almost like a sister classroom over at Brookside. And we both teach the same thing, same level, same classroom. And I know she has some fantastic ideas, and I make things. And when we have 2 separate schools, it gives us an opportunity for sharing resources. And it's instantaneous. If I'm doing math and she sends it to me before math, I can pull it up and do it right there.
So we hear a lot about this mythical Chromebook.
Oh.
You know, and everybody says, we need Chromebooks. And I looked and said, no, we don't. That's just, it's like, I need a hammer.
Yeah.
No, I need a way of placing a nail into a piece of wood. Why do I care about Chromebooks? What is the Chromebook program?
Well, there's no Chromebook program.
Good.
Just for clarity, there's the digital learning environment that we're creating, and there's the vision for teaching and learning. The tool that we have looked at in Milford as the best and most affordable avenue to get there is utilizing a Chromebook. It's a lower cost point to have our students access online resources and access our Google environment. So with this tool, we're able to create resources, share resources, access the web, and it's affordable to the point that we can create not only an establishment for hopefully next year, creating a 5-year replacement plan because of the cost point for each of the devices, because the goal of it is it's really an avenue to the web because it's a Google Chromebook, we're a Google environment. Students have Google accounts through Milford that we set up for them. And when they log into the Chromebook, they're into their environment. They're into their digital environment, which is their drive, which is where they save all their information. And it's an access to the web. And teachers can populate their sites how they would like, and then students can access it. So it's definitely not a Chromebook program initiative. The Chromebook is the tool for our digital learning environment.
And that's what I wanted to hear, because everybody says, we want to buy Chromebooks. I'm like, no, we don't want to buy anything.
Well, we don't say we're a pens environment
Right,
either, because
it's pen and pencil.
Yeah.
like that's the tool that we had. We're not a textbook environment. Those are the tools, or were the tools, hopefully in Milford, that we've had to use in the past because of the evolution of really the instructional paradigm. We're moving into a digital space, and we're becoming front runners very fast because of the vision and because of the dedication and hard work of our professionals to put it into practice. And one of the things I've seen, and it's hard to do, is for teachers to take risks, because teachers often stand up, teach, this is the content, you learn it. Our teachers are trying things and investigating and learning from students, and it's becoming an educational arena and not just a
It's
place.
going to be easier. I've had this lesson plan. You know, I'm going through this age. For the last 20 years, I've had this lesson plan.
Yeah.
You know, okay, now you're asking me to change. You're moving my cheese.
Yeah.
You know, and okay, whether it's a better move or not, the energy of activation is high, because now I've got to rethink and redo everything.
But that's, in some ways, that's a much, you're forcing people out of their comfort zone in some way to rethink the way they do a lesson. And as Terry was saying before, like that one lesson might have worked for a small group of that population, but what if the other half isn't getting it? Are you discounting them? How are you going to make it work for everybody? If it doesn't work for them, what could you do to make it more accessible for others? And that's what is the best part about it, is hopefully it's making teachers more reflective, like, okay, how am I going to update this? Is there any better way I could present this material? So if anything, that's probably something we didn't think about originally, but that's fantastic.
Well, but again, you know, when I said teaching to the lowest common denominator, if you've got 20-some kids and it's all analog, it's all pen and paper, it's got to be a daunting challenge.
I think that when you said that before, it was hard for me to imagine teaching to the lowest common denominator. But if I did not have these tools, yes, it's harder to let these students go ahead when these students are struggling. But I'm not in that environment. But I can appreciate some people feeling like that if they didn't have the tools to allow for this individualization. You know, sometimes I can just say, okay, you guys are all going to be working on this while I'm working with this group. You know, when I first started teaching, there was the 3 different reading groups and centers and all that, which is great. But now centers some can be online, some can be offline, some can be a small group. It's not that we're doing everything on the computer, but it's a wonderful tool to engage.
Yeah.
And that's why teachers do change their lesson plans, because we're trying to engage students, increase that engagement, and when I was talking about students that are more academically successful or capable for more, they can just get bored too. So you have to really increase their engagement and want them, I think, particularly in the middle school, to keep them excited about learning. Keep that excitement
And
high.
it's about having flexibility and what's the best match. And you can ask any of them. I attended every staff meeting the first day. New guy rolls in and starts talking about digital learning in a department that never had anyone before. And one of the things I said was, if the lesson calls for debate, shut the computers and talk. And it's not, that's another misconception, that the students are going to be sitting on computers all day long. It's about what is the best fit. I saw a lesson in your class was about currency and money and creating things. No Chromebooks. And the best fit for your class might have a dialogue piece and then pull up a video that the students can match. So it's about fit.
A hammer doesn't always work.
No.
Yeah.
If it's a screw, the hammer isn't going to be the optimum, tool.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a screwdriver in that analogy, you use the hammer.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't want to do in Milford. We want to make sure our students deserve the best, and we give them that as well from teachers, and computers will never replace them because they're too talented, too hardworking, and their magic with their real talents is when we get from our students their full potential.
And it's interesting because I've been all over poor Kevin and Joe. Mariah's putting up with me saying, you're not marketing the schools the way we need them to be. Because a lot of people look at the averages, scores of Milford, and on this show we've gone over it over and over because my epiphany was made by Tommy Davern. It was a man who took so much pride in Middle School East.
Yeah.
And when my ungrateful offspring #1 showed up, I'm on the parent council, and I asked him, I said, why do your MCAS scores suck? Without a blink, he looked, because you're ignorant. I said, great, enlighten me. And he showed me that we had a very bimodal distribution, that our top kids, there's a Gaussian curve way up here, and he said, I'll put these kids up against any town around us. And by the way, this lower curve, it's not lack of intelligence, it's lack of understanding. The ELL kids are going to take some time to catch up. And they may never catch the front end of the curve, but their potential may not be there. Some of them will pass. And it's one of these things when I look, I love the electronic environment because people are always saying, well, if I have a lot of ELL kids, okay, they leave Christina. Now are they going to draw down my class? And what I'm hearing is, well, you tell me. Are they going to draw down what the top kids in your class get for an experience?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And see, I think that's important for parents, because you can be logical about anything but your children. At the end of the day, I can be perfectly logical about any program. Todd is an analytical chemist. But you look at my daughters, there's no non-emotion involved. There's always emotion. And if I think there's a risk, I may want to go somewhere else. So I think it's important that we ask people, like, okay, when you graduate or have your ELL kids assimilate, you're telling me it's not going to hurt the other kids in your class.
I've got to tell you, I have always been so impressed with the ELLs because I used to work in the homework center. So hardworking. I mean, I think they put a lot of other kids to shame. They're such hardworking kids. Their language, I mean, they're ahead of me. I only know one language. And so they're working on 2 languages, and there's a lot to maneuver. I think they're so brave. I think by and large they're amazingly hardworking. And yeah, they have trouble with word problems in math. They have a lot of trouble with word problems in math. And if it's just straight computation, they're doing great. Yeah, but they're going to do great. If they get through, they will graduate through Milford School, they'll do well. They're going to catch up. But I don't find that they're pulling down or having really an effect. Actually, I never really thought about that. I don't think they have an effect on the other kids.
I think it's the other way around. I think that the classes, some of my favorite classes I've ever interacted with throughout my few years there have been ELL inclusion classes. And I think it's just a blend of kids, a blend of experiences, and what they've helped each other really to learn too. So it's been fantastic.
What I hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's a misconception that if a student's learning a second language, they have a lower intelligence or no less of students who are.
Yes. I mean, it's one of these politically incorrect statements,
And it's
which we believe is less than accurate. But a lot of people will sit there and say, well, they score much lower. They can't be as smart as the other kids.
I think that if you tested a collection of students and gave them letters instead of names and looked at the scores, I think you see that some students who classify as ELL will score higher than your native speakers. The fact that they're learning a second language doesn't determine their intelligence.
Mm-hmm. See, I find it amazing because if I went and tested you in Russian,
Oh, I would bomb it.
you know.
I wouldn't even know where to start.
But you know, the funny part is, knowing a second language, I had no idea till my darling bride and I got to Paris. And she decided she's going to learn French. Of course, Anne-Marie Longo, God bless her, she was such a good teacher. Somehow, 30 years later, I come back to Milford and she goes, do you remember what you said to me when you left the school? That you would never need French? You would never use French? I was like, first of all, how's this woman remember this? And she goes, where did you just move here from? I said, Paris. You know, so it was funny. We got to Paris, and Sharon's learning, my darling bride's learning French, and she says, why is pen feminine? And I'm thinking, caneta. Of course it's feminine. And why? I had a much easier time learning French than she did because Portuguese was the first language I was taught. So the masculine, feminine, I have to admit, I never knew why. Why is a pen feminine? You know, the gender of a table? But you just knew. So it was that much easier. You know, and as we started picking up, I mean, Spanish came easy because of Portuguese. The Russian was the bear.
And I think that's what we're seeing, you know, I know some of what we've talked about today is around the digital platform. It's becoming a language within itself as well because students are learning these techniques that they're going to need as they progress through education and into the real world. And we're seeing it in the classes that the students are picking up some of the lessons, some of the strategies just so intuitively. And I think going back to one of the questions you said, you know, it's not a Chromebook initiative, it's digital learning initiative because it's just the tool. But what they're learning are the skills that the teachers keep, you know, promoting and pushing through the device, the sharing, the manipulation of text.
It's just a mindset. If you tried teaching these kids with, as my daughter says, Dad, I know when you were there with stone tablets. You know, I said, yeah, and the Brontosauri ran around the backyard, yes. But they don't think that way. They're instinctively looking down at their smartphones and looking up things. You know, talk about fact checking. Gone are the days where an old dad could make something up, kind of.
Oh,
No.
No, within microseconds.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well,
That's not true.
There's so much creativity that comes out of
Yes,
an assignment.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, if we're giving them an assignment, it could be on a Google Doc or Google Slides, whatever the assignment is, and you know, set it up so that they get to make some choices. And I see such great creativity. And I had one that was one particular girl that is so quiet. The ELL population can be very quiet. And she's a very quiet girl, but there was a program that everyone had on Google Slides. I shared with them a format that I had set up, and they were going to expand upon it. Well, she just went to town. You know, she just put so much into it, and it was humorous, really, because she's so quiet. She does her work, but she had so much she wanted to put into it, and she had great talent too. She obviously had been working with Google Slides, but some kids hadn't, and they were helping each other. And they're going to need these tools in high
Real
school,
life.
in college,
Absolutely.
in real life. Absolutely, your boss says, "I need you to make a presentation on this." So they have this, and there's things on Google Docs I'm still learning about. Some different tools within Google
Well, I mean,
Docs.
realistically, if you can't use PowerPoint today, you're not going to make it in my marketing group. No. I'm sorry. It's just everything we do.
And they're starting
Is
at a young
PowerPoint.
age.
Well, and by the time our students graduate, it won't be can they use PowerPoint, it will be can you present the information. For example, we had a teacher, Vin Alcareza, who was with us another time we were presenting, and maybe you can touch upon it because I think it's within your field of study of social studies. His students had an activity that not only did they research a product or a topic, they had to create a YouTube video and publish it.
Yeah. They've made It was on the benefits of trading using the monsoon winds. So these boys made a 1-800 call, like it was monsoon travel, and they made an advertisement. It was really brilliant. It was only like a minute long.
great.
It was fantastic. And the fact it was informative. It was.
And this is how old?
They were eighth graders. It was only, I think it was 2 boys
Incredible.
too. Yeah. It's they were great. I think they shot, edited it, wrote it all themselves.
Researched
it was all
it.
That's the
self-
part
yeah.
we don't hear about in the Milford kids.
Yeah.
Well, here you are. We're hearing about it now, and I think that's the big thing that's happening is these exciting things are happening, and we are trying to get out in front of it. And part of my, excitement for today is to have some of our educators and more to come to get out
So
in front
now
of it.
we're talking about the kids. I'm a parent. How do I be a Google parent? What do I do my poor dad came from the old country. He had no clue. All he knew is when they said, you have to go down to the school to support your son, put on his little hat, put his suit on, went down there and sat there totally oblivious to what was going on, but he was told, your son needs to have his father there. He went to every meeting. Today, parents want to be more involved. Okay, how do I get more involved in this Google environment as a parent?
I also think it's, just to go back to the first thing, it's not just the Google environment, it's what are students learning.
Well, but
Talk to your students. We are going to do some parent outreach. I did this, for my first summer here, did some community workshops, and I think we're going to continue to do that, and really talk to the teachers, talk to the students. I've learned as much from any age student, from kindergarten to 12th grade this year. So ask them to show you some things. We do a lot of, and you can talk about some of the work that you put online. Have your child explain to you some of the work that they do. Have them show, because they have a Google account. They can log into their account at any computer that has online access. It doesn't have
So
to be
the
their
parents can log in.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
to their student's account.
See, I think that's key, because in the old days, I always had to fight Jimmy Hoffa because he lived at the bottom of my daughter's backpack, because everything else was there too. And if you wanted to learn what was going on, you had to kind of rip out the pages off the bottom of the backpack.
Well, parents really have access to the math program we have in 6th grade, so the parents can get onto, through the kids' account, see their online book. The book will look exactly online as it does the one that we keep in the classroom, so they can see all of it. So if someone's absent or something comes up or whatever, and says, they can go, this is the lesson they missed. There was these pages. So the parent can sit down and go through the lesson with them, as well as all the supplementary materials we have, so they can really be involved and know what we're working on at any time.
And I think that's key, because there's so many parents that I'm amazed at, single moms, single dads. We had 3 against 2. We outnumbered the girls, and we barely could keep up. With my mother, my darling bride, and I. I can't imagine as a single parent where you have a moment to breathe. So, when everything finally shuts down, this gives you a chance then to log in. What happens if I don't know how to do it? Who do I call?
Your child. You ask your child.
Absolutely.
Really, the children, 6th graders are responsible.
Oh, yeah.
They have their accounts. They should absolutely be communicating with the parents how to log in and so forth. I'm sure I could tell. No parent has ever asked me how to do it because my child won't tell me. They're a team. They work together on things.
And I can reach out to my child's teachers.
Always. Always. Emails
We
are
all
super.
have email accounts, and I think that's another thing that's been a real evolution with our educators and our superintendent and all of our leadership team, is we're becoming a digital environment. Our Twitter accounts. Today was taking a walk before we came here, saw the unified track team, saw softball and tweets.
Yeah, I heard the kids say Sir Tweaks a lot. I've heard that over and over, but it was a great thing.
But I think it's part of, can you maybe talk about how your digital presence has helped open up the doors of your classrooms?
Actually, I have found more ideas for new lessons and projects by joining. I just joined Twitter last fall, and I actually joined other teachers from around the world. I had a lot of European geography teachers, some in Asia, but I saw what they were doing, and I found so many resources and new ideas. Some of my very first projects were ideas I got from social media. But then you can send your feedback, like this is what my kids did, like they took this take on it. And it's a great way to collaborate, even without, I've never met these people, but I've got some
No, but I mean,
fantastic
I'm
ideas.
kidding about you tweeting,
Yeah, we're not tweaking it, yeah.
Not sure.
tweeting a lot, but that's really a nice way. I mean, everybody makes fun of it because of our president, you know, tweeting on international affairs. But wait a minute.
Yeah,
If you can reach out and stimulate a thought,
yeah.
And we've
that's a
been,
good thing.
and we've been trying to promote it and doing, some hashtags. The MPS Learns is one that we tag a lot. We do What You Learn in Wednesday, and we try to pump that out and seeing. And what's great for me is I get to see a lot of the district because I'm mobile, but you don't get to see a lot of what happens at the middle schools or the high school, and it opens the doors because we are a school district comprised of schools. We're
So
not
now,
a
can I
district of
follow
schools.
you to catch these tweets?
Yeah, so I'm at Milford_Tech, and you'll see some of the things that we.
Well, no, but seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Because I may
yeah.
not be thinking. Yeah, I'm running
Yeah.
around,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I see a tweet come across about something.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I want to know about that.
Well, our school closings are on there, all updates, our athletic departments, all schools have one, and I think multiple teachers do, and it's increasing because it's, like you said it about 3 minutes ago, parents are busy, and kids are involved in this, and they're running. When they have 5-10 minutes and want to just debrief, they have their own devices, and they can jump on and say, all right, school, half day tomorrow, thank goodness I
Yeah,
have
and
that.
I'm not making excuses, but
no.
when I see
No, what I'm saying is a
what these
positive.
single parents go through,
Yeah.
I'm in awe.
Or
how they
married,
keep up.
not
Well,
just
even
so-
married, where it's 2 against 2, or there at least the odds are in your favor.
But it's also directing what you want people to see.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
just sharing successes.
That's the thing, is that usually when we've talked to parents and like, oh, did you hear about this, what we're working on? Like, no, like our kids don't say anything to us.
Yeah.
Well, this
Middle schoolers.
It's like when we get so excited about what we're doing and it's something we made, it's nice to present it too.
And
Now, is it only English? Or are we-
Absolutely not. No. I think that, and what I love about, if you have actually a Google browser, if you have Chrome, you can set it up so it will translate anything on the page for you. So when I'm tweeting, and
So it becomes Senor Tweaks a lot?
the handle stays the same, but all the text will be translated and for parents if they have that
That
browser.
is fantastic,
Yeah.
because that'd be something that, I could see even my parents,
Yeah.
who when they came over spoke no English, but they were always worried that make sure they did what they could to help me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sending to them in Portuguese, and I assume, how many languages are in ELL? It always amazes me in Milford.
Oh, a variety.
Yeah.
In my classroom alone, I have Portuguese, English, Spanish, Arabic, and Chinese.
I have those as well. Not all of them, but I have Portuguese, Arabic, this year, just mainly Portuguese, Arabic, and Spanish. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was learning Arabic, I got to Riyadh, and I was all
Yeah.
excited because I'm starting to learn. And then I look up at the signs. It's like, what? I said, where are the vowels? I said, you don't need them. I said, yes, I do. It was so amazing. It was hard enough getting used to that I could have different lengths. But when they took the vowels out, I said, I'm dead. I'm never going to learn to write this properly. So now you're having some fun things. Techapalooza, or what did you?
Yeah, it was, so this year we have formed a tech steering committee. I call it our innovation team. And we've been planning some initiatives, and we had an initiative in March, was Techapalooza. And it fascinated me, and it was amazing that we had this idea, and we're like, let's come up with a professional development so that our teachers can learn some more from our own teachers and just sharing ideas. And because the calendar was set for professional development, there really wasn't time. And someone said, what about a Saturday? And we're like, all right, let's see. So I sent out a survey, would you be willing to come? 85 people said, sure, I'd be willing to come on a Saturday. And I said, all right,
So
let's.
these are the educators that nobody believes will go the extra mile. These are the
Well,
ones
and it
that
gets even better. And
came
then,
out in July to learn.
yes,
on
we
their
had
own
over
time.
100 people in our summer PD as well.
Now the same educators that everybody says they do the minimum gave up their own Saturdays.
And it was well over 85. So then we put this program together.
This is stuff you don't hear about.
So we put it together and we sent out, would you like to share something you've done in your class, a strategy? And we had 32 sessions on that Saturday of classes, and we had over 100 of our professionals come and attend. I think you attended, and if you could maybe talk about it, it was held at Woodland School. It was 8:30 to 12:30, although it started at 5:30 for me because I was actually in a conference in San Francisco. I was attending a tech and learning event. And I said at the time, oh, I couldn't be there, so I'll do the opening virtually. This would be fun. Once we put it in place, like, wait a second, it's 3 hours before everybody else. So Dr. McIntyre videoed something. Myself, I did a live welcome to everybody, and then they had 3 sessions of an hour block
But
each.
tell us about it, because again, you always hear about the bad things. You know, I mean, very few people remember that the years that our budget got nailed, that other teachers in different towns were delaying their raises. Our union, I mean, the union came to the FinCom and said, if you use all that money to keep our people, we'll give up our raise this year.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah.
You know, what more could you ask
Yeah.
than the people who are educating our children saying, I'm more worried about keeping,
We're in it together.
yeah.
Yes.
And that was what was great about the event. It was our teachers educating our own teachers
Yeah.
and educating not just our
So
teachers.
what did you do on the Saturday?
So you
So-
could probably speak more to this.
I had the opportunity to lead 2 sessions as well as take one as well. And all of it was based on technology. And I got to see teachers that I've never actually met before.
Yeah.
And some of them came to my classroom and we had great conversations about what they're doing in their rooms. And then I got to go and see a teacher and taught me a new type of technology that I could bring back into my classroom. And what was fantastic was I sat there and I listened to her, and then the Monday after I was able to bring it up, pull it up, and I used it in my classroom. And it was a blast and the kids loved it, and I would have never known about it. I mean, I probably would have found it eventually searching and searching, but then I wouldn't have had the chance to know somebody who used it. And I think the best part about it was that we were guiding our own learning, which
Yeah.
is kind of what we want the kids to do too.
Yeah.
But the fact that we had this opportunity to, you sent us a schedule and it said, pick what you want. And
Yeah.
very often we have contractual days and we're not really given a choice. So to be able to go and decide what was the best fit for us was exhilarating. It was so much fun to just go, and it was fun to go and watch and learn.
I mean,
and-
you're actually
Yeah.
doing what you're teaching?
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
And
So-
we've been to other type events too, and there have been gigantic walls where you have a post that you say, I would like to know more about this, and if anyone wants to know, like, I am a master at using social media to, you know, so if there's enough interest, you can start a class right there. But
Why are
it's-
the two of you teaching in Milford?
I am a product of the Milford school system, and I got my degree, and I taught at other schools, and I always knew I wanted to come back here.
Why?
There was something, I had some great teachers, fantastic teachers, and I wanted to be that teacher for other students. And I thought, what better place than where I learned?
It's amazing the gravitational pull
You know,
that our little town has.
it's incredible.
You know, I mean, I loved Washington. There's so much going on. Really enjoyed Paris. The culture, the fun, running around half the world
Yeah.
was really cool. Then we had a child. And somehow, it just felt right to come back here. So I always ask people, I mean, you could teach anywhere. There's other school systems that pay more. Why are you here?
And honestly, I have a fantastic team of teachers around me too, and just the environment I work in has been fantastic. And the fact that I've been able to teach what I like to teach and be so creative and allow the space to do that, I've had a fantastic time. So.
Now I got to put on my FinCom hat.
Yeah.
We gave you $1 million to improve the infrastructure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really.
And what have we gotten for our? Well,
so-
we only gave 300. We matched a grant for 6.
So I know we only have about 3 minutes left, so I just want to say really quickly, what we were able to do this year was fully wire Stacy Middle School and also Memorial School, and what an enormous difference. So now that we have the
Yeah.
tools,
Yeah.
so both
Yes.
of all actually the schools that all
Yes.
three of you are in, and then moving forward, we just signed on to start our project at the high school, which will be fully wireless, and Brookside. So by the time students arrive next year, and probably sooner, but that's our target date is evolving.
Well, you only
through
have
the
a
summer.
few weeks left in this year.
Correct. That we'll be pre-K to 12 fully wireless district, and talk about the difference from last year to this year with the
Oh.
tools.
It's been
Oh my gosh.
Night
Yeah.
and day.
Night and day.
You can count on it. You know,
Yeah.
you count on it. Sometimes the internet would just drop.
Yeah.
And in the middle of something, it's just we can count on doing what we want to do and bringing to the kids what we want to bring to the kids.
the amount of technology we have now. We definitely got far more Chromebooks, and I know that we're using a lot more
Yep.
devices than ever were before, and there has been no problem thus far. It's been pretty fantastic and fast too. So,
Yeah, the bandwidth of 2 electrons per second was a little slower before we put in the fiber.
Right, and with the updates, we were able to facilitate online testing for our state testing for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 8th grade this year using our devices and the infrastructure.
So we're hoping to do the middle school in Chromebooks for the fall,
Yes,
and the high school thereafter.
I mean, if we're talking hoping, I would hope we could do it all.
Yeah. I would hope I'm young, thin, and have hair. Still fat old bald man looking back in the mirror. But at least within the next 6 months, it looks like we'll be able to.
And I think that having the tools to match our vision and the drive of Dr. McIntyre and putting a lot of this in place and having the district tech plan launch last year, and it's been about 9 months in the works, to see where we've come from really August 28th to today with us sitting in front of you has been such an exciting evolution. And I know you didn't ask me, but why I wanted to work here is because of that vision, because of that excitement, because of risk takers that we have here, and to be a part of something special.
So what's next?
I think continuing to move forward, working together with our teachers. One of the things that brings down an initiative is to say what's next and keep adding on. What's next is taking what we have and learning it better.
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
And then applying it and doing more events and sharing. And what's next is learning what we have, get more, and then share that with each other. And then we just become a pool of wealth and knowledge. And at the end of the day, the benefactor of all of that are the pre-K through 12 students who walk through the door every day.
Well, thank you for being innovators and for taking care of our kids in multiple languages. And as always, get to know what's available. The only limitation I've ever found in Milford is the parents who don't ask. Because every time I've asked, every time I've challenged one of our educators, they seem to exceed my expectations. And at the end, I've always said, we can have our own feelings as to whether or not Milford is the center of the universe and has great schools, but the ultimate judges are the colleges. And when you see the Ivy League and the top-notch schools that all of our kids are getting into, you can feel pretty good. You can feel better than pretty good. So I thank all the staff. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, good night, may God bless, and may tomorrow be a better night than tonight.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just searching for my soul.